we have killed Lal Bahadur Shastri. He confessed to killing Lal Bahadur Shastri, and then 11 days later, the murder of Homi Bhabha. ये भी admit किया. July interview 1996 में interview दिया. He was the former operations director of the CIA. And he in an interview said that it has not been repudiated. Why did Mrs. Gandhi enter the Golden Temple? Because the Russians told us they are about to declare independence of Khalistan and Pakistan will recognize them. ये Russians हम लोग को कहा. Bidhanwale will declare independence of Punjab and it will be recognized immediately by Pakistan and who knows which other country. This was the actual trigger for the Indian entry. She was very reluctant to enter because she knew there would be damage, and she was, in fact, our soldiers were told, do not damage the Akaltak. In the end, they failed. They were told, they took a lot of casualties trying not to attack the Akaltak, which, of course, as a Hindu also for me, was a very big thing that wo nahi karna tha. Each one hopes that when this change happens, we will be the one in the driving seat and not the other party. So America hopes China will not be in the driving seat, and China hopes we will be in the driving seat. So iska contest bhi chal raha hai, cooperation bhi chal raha hai. Now America is fearing that India will eventually also make peace with China. ये fear कर रहा है that in the future when India is a strong economy, China will conclude इससे लड़ाई नहीं कर सकते.
नमस्कार, सत श्री अकाल, राम राम साहब, हुम्बागड़ी वणक्कम. आप सभी को ऑल्टरनेट मीडिया में फिर से स्वागत है. हमारे साथ पहली बार जुड़े हुए हैं प्रोफेसर गौतम सेन. प्रोफेसर सर के बारे में मैं क्या जितनी तारीफ करूं उतनी कम है. दिस द फर्स्ट टाइम आई एम गेटिंग हिम ऑन शो एंड आई एम रियली फीलिंग वेरी प्रिविलेज्ड एंड फीलिंग वेरी, और क्या बोलूं मैं, मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है कि वेरी ऑनर्ड टू हैव हिम ऑन द शो. A little bit about sir. He has done PhD. He's a doctorate from London School of Economics. Sir has been he's been creating a lot of modules and study programs. One of them being the creator of a graduate program in international politics at London School of Economics. He's also been a director and lecturer in different masters in political science and world economics projects. He's advised 3 prime ministers of India, including that of Nepal. He's also been associated with the Brunei government. He has been also advisor to many UN organizations like UNDPO and UNIDO, UNIDO. He's published extensively both for national and international organizations. Currently, he is authoring. He has also co-authored a book called Analysis of Global Political Economics. Apart from that, sir is also currently advisor and consultant to many national and international organizations. Sir, a very warm welcome on the show.
धन्यवाद गायत्री देवी जी, आपने मुझे बोलने का मौका दिया. I'm very honored to be on your show. I watch it and I admire some of the forensic analysis your guests provide, especially I have mentioned to you Dr. Handa, so I feel very privileged. So हम शुरू करते हैं. मैं पहले माफी मांग रहा हूँ, मेरा हिंदी is about 60% spoken, 75% comprehension. तो मैं अंग्रेजी में बोलूंगा, कभी-कभी हिंदी में भी कुछ बोल दूंगा. So my apologies to those who would prefer to hear me in Hindi. Let me say that I want to cover 3 broad areas of India's place in the world and where we are headed. And this is a very crucial moment. In fact, I was talking to a senior BJP Karyakarta in November, and he said to me, we are facing an existential challenge. तो इसके जवाब में मैंने कहा, ये 4th बैटल ऑफ पानीपत होने वाला है 224 में. ये हमें जीतना है. Somehow or the other हमें जीतना है ये. And indeed, I hold firmly to that. And I'm feeling reasonably confident after what has just transpired in the 5 states, which, well, the BJP has won handsomely. तो ठीक है. Now, geopolitics में हम मेरे विचार से, you cannot understand what is happening by only looking at the last few months, last few years, even the last 2 decades. जैसे हमारे रिश्ता यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स से बदलाना शुरू किया 1998-99 जब से अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी प्रधानमंत्री बने और जसवंत सिंह was external affairs minister and other senior people including our NSA Mr. Mishra. we have to look back a bit longer to understand the overall context and the big picture. एक बड़ा छवि देखने का बहुत जरूरत है. We have to understand so we can anticipate हम कहाँ पहुँच गए. Let me start actually with the 50s. जब पाकिस्तान ने सेंटो सीटो ज्वाइन किया 55, 54, 55 में, वहां पे उनका बहुत एक गंभीर रिश्ता बन गया. They became very close because Pakistan became a NATO Cold War ally against Soviet Union. So this is a very important issue. And आप ये समझना चाहिए Pakistan's internal politics, security services, armed forces training, a lot of it happened in the United States and somewhat in Britain. तो ये उनका बच्चा बन गया. England had created Pakistan in order to have access to Central Asia to combat the Soviet Union and also to constrain India, which it has done handsomely ever since its founding. And Pakistan के एक सपना था मैं नया मदीना बन जाऊंगा, वो तो नहीं हुआ. So after that, the United States basically became the principal backer of Pakistan. And let me just jump forward to a little episode which is in the autobiography of the Canadian High Commissioner Escott Reed, who was in India from 1952 to 1957. He records in his autobiography, a copy of which is LSE library में मिलता है, difficult to get. He says he had a conversation with the CIA chief in Delhi. And CIA chief उनको कहा, हम किसी बड़ा लड़ाई नहीं कर सकते हैं without India. We need Indian manpower. So ये चिंता उनमें है, and I think despite the Vietnam War, अभी ये manpower का जरूरत बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गया. Because United States में recruitment का बहुत समस्या है, and young people don't want to join the armed forces, and you basically have the relatively poor and underprivileged minorities. So India is the only country with the manpower to embark on a major land war. So ये चिंता Washington में बिल्कुल they have understood. Then you think about what happened in the 60s. एक तो ये मुझे लगता है from the interview of Crow, I think it was that we have killed Lal Bahadur Shastri. He confessed to killing Lal Bahadur Shastri, and then 11 days later, the murder of Homi Bhabha. ये भी admit किया. July interview 1996 में interview दिया. He was the former operations director of the CIA. And he in an interview said that it has not been repudiated. It has not been repudiated. It was actually not Crow, it was Robert Crowley, and the interviewer was Gregory Douglas. And I'd like to read out something which will make people sit up. And I'm going to quote you over the next 2 minutes to understand the entire mindset where India was concerned. We had trouble, with India back in the 1960s when they got uppity and started work on an atomic bomb. Loudmouth cow lovers bragging about how clever they were and how they too were going to be a great power in the world. And we did not want them to have any kind of nuclear weapons because God knows what they would have done with it. Probably strut their stuff like a Washington nigger with a brass watch. Let me quote again. Strut their stuff like a Washington nigger with a brass watch. This is 1996, the operations director of the CIA. तो हमको सतर्क होना बहुत जरूरत था शुरू से भी. Then we have this episode of Lal Bahadur's murder in 66. 11 days later, we had the loss of our great scientist, Homi Bhabha. And they say we didn't care who died with him. We just didn't want it to come down in Brussels in a built-up area, so we brought it down over the Alps. ऐसी सब बातें किया. In 1971, they ignored the massacre. The blood telegram from the United States consulate in Dhaka told them in detail what was going on. The massacres, the rapes, etc. Nixon and Kissinger ignored it completely. They allowed it to happen. And they were very unhappy with Indira Gandhi, and they were very angry that she was not willing to listen. And Kissinger had said, we will deal with you. And I can tell you from my personal experience, due to my misfortune in my youth, I was involved with the major English language Naxalite paper in Calcutta. When I was a student, I used to go back and help edit it because the publisher was my renowned poet uncle, and I had great affection and fondness for him. And उस वक्त मुझे पता चल गया, by 1970-71, the United States was involved in helping the Naxalite movement destabilize India. They were involved. And remember,
US was involved in the Naxalite movement.
बिल्कुल. The consul general used to wear a dhoti, spoke fluent Bengali, was a friend of my father, my late father. So उसके साथ भी मुझे एक बार दो बार मुलाकात हुआ, but I was quite young, but मैंने सुना, आया था. They were also very close to China by 71. By 71, the United States and China were talking privately before Nixon's meeting in 1972 with Mao Zedong in China. So they were coordinating because China also wanted to destabilize India, and both of them were very angry about Indian intervention in East Pakistan. And in fact, there's an episode recorded where Kissinger, like the gangster he was, he met the Chinese ambassador to the United Nations, uska naam abhi bhi mujhe yaad hai, Hua Huang, in a warehouse, and said to him, "Why don't you invade India?" To which the ambassador of China to UN replied, "You're already in the Bay of Bengal. Why don't you do it?" So why did China not invade and threaten India? Because they had helped Pakistan and Bhutto plan the 65 war. This was a plan made in Beijing of exactly how the war should proceed. So 71 में क्यों नहीं किया? ये क्यों नहीं किया? Because Russia, the Soviet Union, had mobilized 40 divisions on the Chinese border as a warning. 40 divisions. So this is why China did not dare. So हमारे Russian को हाथ जोड़ के अब with the foreign minister there मैं फिर याद कर रहा हूँ with a lot of gratitude. Then I'll go very quickly. उसके बाद क्या हुआ देखिए. United States, now the records are all on the internet. They helped Pakistan acquire the nuclear bomb. उसको सब कुछ पता था. सब कुछ पता था. Dick Cheney was the man who helped Pakistan. So did the Dutch and the Germans. सब spares वहाँ पे आया था. Critical materials. And of course, China helped them detonate their first experiment in Lucknow, in China. तो ये बॉम्ब जो है ना, ये पाकिस्तानी बॉम्ब नहीं है, ये एक चाइनीज बॉम्ब है, आउटसोर्स टू पाकिस्तान to increase the threat by showing that there is a very angry, uncertain state which might use it. तो ये बहुत चालाकी किया, पाकिस्तान को दे दिया, but it is a Chinese bomb which is being held by Pakistan. Now, a very brave young man fought against Dick Cheney, and he was working for the CIA. It was CIA. His name was Dick Barlow. बहुत लड़ाई किया, बच्चा था. He had all the evidence, and he gave it to the presidency. They declared him mentally unfit. He ended up living in a caravan for 20 years, but he finally won his court case against the United States government. Now, if you Google Dick का नाम, you will find it's all on the internet. उसके बाद क्या किया United States? हमारे सुपर कंप्यूटर रोक दिया. What we made it ourselves. हमारे मिसाइल प्रोग्राम रोक दिया. कितना पाबंदी लगाया, कितना रिस्ट्रिक्शन लगाया, वो भी रोक दिया. उसके बाद जीपीएस स्विच ऑफ किया ड्यूरिंग द कारगिल वॉर. तो हम लोग अपना बना लिया, अपना जीपीएस बना लिया. वो स्विच ऑफ किया so that we could not target the Pakistanis in the heights. There's also another little episode which not everybody knows. We had sent one of the terrorist Pakistani bomb parts to the United States for examination. कुछ दिन के बाद उन्होंने कहा ये तो खो गया, पता नहीं कहाँ गया. So ये सब हमें याद रखना है. ये जो नया दोस्ती बना, it is entirely opportunistic. They need India to constrain China, but they know India will only offer port facilities and supplies, but India will not participate in any war against Taiwan. They know this. नहीं हमारे external affairs minister को भी पता है. So they are not happy with us. हमारे समस्या क्या है? We have been doing our own thing. Despite all our vulnerability, weakness, Shastri asserted India's independence. Nehru did not. I will come to you in a minute. Nehru did not. Though he made a pretense of being socialist and pro-communist and neutral, he did not. Shastri ने assert किया बहुत जबरदस्त. हम किसी की बात नहीं सुनेंगे. Shastri said, if we do not give back Haji Pir Pass, which India had occupied in 65, हमें हत्या करेंगे. They killed him anyway. Indira Gandhi also showed a lot of courage for all her faults in 71. and they are not happy with Narendra Modi. Narendra Modi बहुत प्यारे प्यारे बातें करते हैं, but he is the first real prime minister after Shastri who looks at India and the world from an Indian telescope. He does not look at India from the outside world. He does not consult the Washington Post and New York Times सुबह उठ के before deciding क्या करना है. He looks out at the world from India. ये हमारे भगवान की कृपा, हमें ऐसे एक बड़ा नेता मिल गया जो is a patriot. हम नहीं कहते हैं कुछ गलत काम नहीं हो रहा है, नहीं मैं कहूँगा. It's not possible for any leader not to make mistakes. But what I will say, everything that has happened since 2014 has been done in good faith. There is no bad faith and dishonesty. जो गलती भी हुआ, that was out of misperception. जो सब सरकार को होता है. So that you have to remember. So United States likes vassals. और इसके कोई विचार की जरूरत बिल्कुल नहीं है. आप देख सकते हैं क्या हो यूक्रेन वॉर के समय में क्या हो रहा है. Every single country associated with the United States has bent on their knees to do what they are told. Germany, the most successful and powerful economy of Europe, has collapsed as an economy. They cannot survive without cheap Russian energy supplies. Khatam ho gaya. And very funnily, a lot of German industry has moved to the United States. And they are buying expensive American gas. Very expensive. उसका खत्म हो गया. इंग्लैंड तो वैसल है, लंदन में कुछ नहीं होता है. लंदन सिर्फ इंस्ट्रक्शन फॉलो करते हैं. सो इंग्लैंड को बहुत ज्यादा गाली देने की जरूरत नहीं है कि जो भी वो करता है हमारे खिलाफ वो इंस्ट्रक्शन लेके करते हैं. जापान भी ऐसे है. जापान विल नॉट disobey the United States. In fact, my dear friend, the outstanding Indian officer, Lieutenant General Jacob, who used to go for meetings, told me, whenever we make a proposal, they look at the Americans in the delegation to see uska kya chinta hai. I am not pointing a finger at Japan. Japan बहुत बड़ा युद्ध हार गया, and they were totally flawed, and they are only now beginning to assert a degree of independence. But even now, they will not go against the United States. The only major country which has autonomy is France. That is why we buy a lot of our hardware from France as well as Russia, but not from the United States. We are not buying big hardware. We are buying a lot of missile ammunition, but those things which require a lot of servicing by foreigners, we are wary. अच्छी बात है, यही करना है. But France also will not give us nuclear submarines without the United States giving the go ahead. वो भी हमें नहीं देने के लिए तैयार है. And the Russians one, we are not confident about exactly what quality they have and what we want. So ये है geopolitics. हमारे ये दुनिया में कोई मित्र नहीं है. ये कौटिल्य कहा था बहुत साल पहले, 2700 साल पहले उसका किताब में लिखा हुआ है. सबके everybody is an enemy. Everybody is preparing for the next war. ये कौटिल्य लिखा था. So we have to take for granted हमारे कोई दोस्त नहीं है. Only country which does not want harm coming to us is perhaps Vietnam. Vietnam will be very sad to see harm to us, but they have to make their own calculation. They will not go to war against China when they attack us. They have to make their own calculations. And this is how it is. Russia has been a good friend, despite what has happened recently because of its huge dependence on China. The Americans have thrust them into the arms of China. Now they are very dependent on China. But Russia is a very sophisticated player. They have been doing this since before Peter the Great. International diplomacy इसको बहुत आता है. ये बहुत सोच समझ के करता है. So we should not be surprised if there are many tricks up their sleeves. And I very much doubt they will do anything active to harm us. They may stand aside because of their dependence on China, but I do not believe they will actively harm us. So Russia remains a friend, and I'm very happy Jaishankar is there, having a 5-day visit, talking to them. हम सब ठीक कर रहे हैं, सब ठीक कर रहे हैं. This is how we should behave. Now, England, as I said, is not an important player at all in any way. They have handed over all their assets to the United States. The only thing we should bear in mind, which I was discussing with a senior Indian intelligence officer, and I have to say he was a little bit surprised. मैंने इसको कहा, Pakistan and the United States coordinate in India. Extensive coordination. इसका एक ही कारण है, the United States has a huge amount of electronic surveillance of India. Everything from phone calls, सब कुछ उसको पता है. but they don't have a lot of human intelligence on the ground. And that Pakistan has. Pakistan has a lot of human assets all over India. And that intelligence they share with the United States. The United States has no choice. So US and Pakistani cooperation in intelligence gathering in the United States is extensive. And सबसे बुरा कहानी मैं आप सुनाऊंगा अभी सबसे बुरा कहानी. Both the United States and China want the same thing in India. They want the same thing. That's only one thing. They don't want anything else. They want a weak government in Delhi. They want a weak government in Delhi which will be unwilling to annoy them and be willing to do their bidding. That is what they want. India cannot be invaded by one of these great powers. That's not feasible. हम लड़ाई करेंगे और हमको लड़ाई करने का क्षमता बहुत है. Even China has understood. हम लड़ाई करेंगे and we will throw everything into it. हम लड़ाई नहीं करना चाहते हैं. We don't want to fight with anybody. We want to consolidate our economic progress and we have a bit of a Gandhian Hindu strain. हम लड़ाई नहीं करना चाहते हैं. So that people should understand, if we have to fight now, we will fight with everything we've got. We will mobilize our entire nation. हमको लड़ाई करना आता है. But China and the United States are implicitly cooperating to destabilize Modi, both of them. ये जो अदानी का कहानी हुआ ना, I would not be surprised to learn Chinese were short sellers of Adani shares. They were short sellers to destabilize Adani. Now, Adani का अपना कुछ गलती भी था. There was a lot of internal debt exchanges within Adani Enterprises. Actually, everybody does that all over the world. But that makes you vulnerable. And और एक बहुत बड़ा vulnerability था. वो भी बहुत सारे company का है. Their price equity ratio for some of their companies was almost 200. If your price equity ratio is 200, it's very easy to damage confidence in the company by saying that गलत है. Normal price equity ratio is below 25. Uska some enterprises were 200, which is basically like gambling. People who invest in that were gamblers. But it is easy to destabilize this by spreading rumors and lies. And it is correct, as our friend Shumit Mehta has also said, and I've been talking to him, and the government is also saying, Adani was targeted to destabilize India under Modi. That is very clear. They thought if Adani can be hammered, the whole of the Indian economy will be destabilized. Magar hua nahi. We survived it rather well, and now Adani shares are rising in the market. Some bach gaye. So, yehi kahani hai. In geopolitics, we have no friends, and even China and the United States both want the same thing, which is to destabilize and have a weak government in Delhi. Who do they want now?
What about Russia? Since we are weighing our friends across the world, what about Russia? Because it's called as all-time friend of Bharat.
I have no evidence on this, but I am absolutely sure they are sharing intelligence about the others in India. They also have their sources to tell us, ye ho raha hai, wo raha hai. Why did Mrs. Gandhi enter the Golden Temple? Because the Russians told us they are about to declare independence of Khalistan and Pakistan will recognize them. ये Russians हम लोग को कहा. The Bidhanwale will declare independence of Punjab and it will be recognized immediately by Pakistan and who knows which other country. This was the actual trigger for the Indian entry. She was very reluctant to enter because she knew there would be damage, and she was, in fact, our soldiers were told, do not damage the Akal Takht. In the end, they failed. They were told, they took a lot of casualties trying not to attack the Akal Takht, which, of course, as a Hindu also for me, was a very big thing that wo nahi karna tha. Anyway, wo to hua. So I just want to add a couple of quick points. Nehru ka time mein, Nehru was sharing defense purchase ideas with Edwina Mountbatten. Ye to ab nikal gaya sab. It's all on. He was talking to Edwina right up to 1960 January till she died. He was in touch with her constantly. He also wanted to give up a big part of the Kashmiri Valley to Pakistan in 65. Sorry, in 64. He wanted to give it up. And this was brokered by Lord Mountbatten. But because he died within that short period, ek hafta pehle hota to Kashmir would have been given to Pakistan. This is also on record. Just look at the Kunal Verma videos. Sab record uspe hai. Now, what is happening in India, ye baat sabko pata nahi hai. India is a soft state, deeply, deeply infiltrated. And the biggest story in India, which most people don't know, hamare desh mein honey trapping is an epidemic. I'll give you one example. Sheikh Abdullah, when he was alive, used to keep 250 young women in the secretariat. So everybody was compromised. Every senior civil servant was compromised. And ये जो मेजर गोगोई का प्रोसिक्यूशन हुआ था ना, मेजर गोगोई जो ह्यूमन शील्ड लगाया था गाड़ी के सामने स्टोन पेल्टर को, he was framed because somebody very high up had been compromised and instructed the framing of Major Gogai, brave officer. We are now aware of RVS Mani, the former Deputy Secretary of Home Ministry. श्रीनगर से आते थे दिल्ली में scores of Kashmiri girls from high families, and they formed intimate relations with senior bureaucrats, politicians, police. Farmhouse पे और एक infamous address in Delhi, Haley Road, वहाँ पे है. They didn't go to hotels because in hotels the CCTV will catch you, and all these episodes would be filmed. Farmhouse में सब. So very senior people in India across the border compromised because of relations with Kashmiris under the control of the ISI. And one final story on this I'll tell you. They compromised a huge number of people under the SP in UP, in Lucknow. सबको compromise किया. And ये कोई शादीशुदा Hindu MLA is to marry the mistress in a nikah, in a mosque, which had a separate area for nikah with married Hindu men. It was so big. ये भी आप देख सकते हैं इंटरनेट पे सब कुछ है. So we are deeply compromised. And this is something very important. Our top leadership must be completely above reproach. Now, Russia is aware of all of this because they also spy. The Americans also do honey trapping, but not on the scale that Pakistanis have been doing. Our government has been run from Pakistan at many levels. 26/11 was a fixed match. It only happened because of the cooperation of Indian politicians. We were warned by the United States, ye kuch hone wala hai. They told us something. They didn't tell us when and where, but they said a seaborne attack. It is all in the book written by the two Sunday Times generals. They had told us. The reason why they didn't give us more detail was because David Headley was a double agent. They didn't want to compromise him. So सब कुछ नहीं कहा. उसके बाद क्या हुआ? Indian Navy was asked to leave the area by the government. They left the area where they have recently interdicted other Pakistani boats. They were told to leave the area. Then Patil, when the attack commenced, kept our SPG waiting in the airport saying, मैं आपके साथ आ रहा हूँ. He did not let them board the plane and go. They were waiting in the airport for him. He deliberately slowed them down. And then RVS Mani says it was not possible for the terrorists to enter Bombay where they did in that very busy, crowded area without some local help. So ये जो 26/11 था, this was genuinely an attempt to frame Hindu. And if Kasab को पकड़ गया, otherwise it would have stuck. If Kasab had not been stopped by this brave officer who gave his life, this libel against Hindus would have stuck. This was all electioneering. And कुछ फायदा मिला because they won the next election. They won the next election. कुछ तो फायदा मिला. So we have to be extremely wary of how India is governed from within. And इस बार मैं फिर कहूँगा, मोदी जी ने हम लोग को बचा के रखा. What is Modi ji doing? Let me come to the concluding 5 minutes. मोदी जी ने क्या कर रहा है? I'll be the first to say कुछ काम नहीं हुआ. मेरे लिए मंदिर को छोड़ना बहुत बड़ा issue है. Once we let the mandir go, our philosophical traditions will be revived because mandirs will be enriched and empowered. Our old traditions from where Adi Shankaracharya, Ramanuja, Madhava emerged, the great mandirs, including Shardapit, Nalanda, ये सब हमको वापस लाना है. ये सरकार को करना है. The other thing which is a failing in my view is to change the educational curriculum. मैंने सुना अब कुछ होने वाला है, but कुछ नहीं हो रहा है. It was announced by HRD, but I've heard kuch nahi ho raha. If we had changed the educational curriculum, a new generation of voters who would have emerged to vote in 24 would have become much more sensitive to the reality of our country and taken a more patriotic view. What is in our favor? What is in our favor as Hindus? The biggest thing in our favor is that 600 million Indians will live in cities by 2030. 600 million. The city voter is not concerned about caste so much. He's concerned about good services, bijli, schooling, sarak. These people will vote for what Modi has already given them, good governance, what Yogiji has given them, what Himanta Biswas has given them. So these 600 million people will become the voters we want. Now, what is Modi doing that has upset so much people? What is he doing? I have to make a little bit of a historical perspective. Modi is doing what is called nation building. Dunia sab jagah mein hota hai. Nation building is a difficult task. It is not a painless task, and it is not a task without compromises and some injustice. मैं फिर कहूंगा, nation building will cause some injustice because by unifying, you will reduce the diversity. Without this, we cannot survive as a nation. हम लोग जैसे लड़ाई किया था in the 8th 9th century between three empires, Bengal, South, and the North. लड़ते लड़ते हम तो हार गया when the Arabs came. इसलिए तो हमने हार गया, सिंध खो गया. So this is the unification Modi is doing, which Sardar Patel had done with the unification of states. And Modi is trying to complete the task by building our infrastructure and economy. And लोग कहते हैं ये नहीं कर रहा है, वो नहीं कर रहा है. भाई साहब, मोदी जी बहुत समझदार आदमी है. I know for a fact because I know people close to him. He is a hard-thinking person. मेरे लगता है इसका सोच है until we reach $7 trillion, हम किसी से पंगा नहीं लेंगे. When India is 7 trillion, उसके बाद हम खड़े हो जाएंगे, हम assert करेंगे. We will then say मैं ये हूँ, and our autonomy will be established. In the meantime, सबके साथ को खेल खेलना है, वही कर रहा है मोदी जी. Central Asia, Middle East, Africa, सबके साथ हम रिश्ता बना रहे हैं, aid दे रहा है, COVID vaccine भेजवा है. This is a very sophisticated and difficult game he's playing, and really, I say to people, शष्टांग प्रणाम कीजिए कि भगवान ने हमें ऐसे एक नेता भेजा who is doing it right. And I think it is possible. And final comment I'll make to encourage people, if India grows at 8% per year, which is possible, हम तो सारे साथ पहुंच गए. And Modi's infrastructure build-up will give more dividends in the future. Infrastructure build-up के impact होता है 3-5 साल lag के बाद. The impact of a road, development along the roads, development along new stations takes 3 to 5 years. So ये जो infrastructure तैयार हुआ, unbelievable digitization, सब कुछ, ये 3-5 साल के बाद will raise our growth rate, I hope above 8%. 8% per annum means in 14 years, your economy will be 3 times the size. So हमारे जो 4.2 हो गया because about 10% is black economy, 4.2 will become $30 trillion in 14 years. So 2034, 35 में हम 7 trillion जरूर पहुंच जाएंगे. This will be Modi ji's gift. इसलिए बहुत जरूरत है. भगवान फिर एक बार उसको हमको वापस कर दीजिए.
Sir, just now you said during this brief talk, you said that the USA wants Rahul Gandhi as a prime minister. Is China also helping in that? And what about Russia? Because these are the three major superpowers whenever we are talking about geopolitics. Ji sir.
You see, let me say first, Russia does not want a weak coalition government in Delhi, because this kind of government will be in the pockets of either China or America. Now, this is an interesting point. You see, both of them are campaigning to weaken the government of Narendra Modi, and each one hopes that they will come out ahead. But unless you weaken him, ये option तो नहीं आता है ना. Unless Modi goes, you cannot seize India. So both of them implicitly and maybe explicitly cooperate to destabilize Modi. दोनों मिलके कर रहा है, मगर each one hopes that when this change happens, we will be the one in the driving seat and not the other party. So America hopes China will not be in the driving seat, and China hopes we will be in the driving seat. So इसका contest भी चल रहा है, cooperation भी चल रहा है. Now America is fearing that India will eventually also make peace with China. ये fear कर रहा है that in the future, when India is a strong economy, China will conclude इससे लड़ाई नहीं कर सकते. If India becomes several trillion, Chinese calculations will change. You see, for example, शुरू में China कभी तवांग नहीं मांगा था. तवांग नहीं मांगा था माओ सेतुंग. अब तवांग क्यों मांग रहा है? Because they have become so strong economically. Now, if India becomes strong, their calculations will change, and they are very good diplomats, and they might say, "ठीक है, India say, let us do a deal." And this, the United States does not want. And I am sure if Indians have held any quiet discussions with China, kahin bhi, the Americans have found out. And that is why they hate Modi even more. That Modi China ke sath kuch baatchit kiya. And also, this is the problem. But the Russians, I am almost sure, are keeping us informed because their surveillance systems are very good. They do not want Modi to suffer a setback because they know the alternative is not some other government which will carry on relations with Russia, but some government which will become very pro-Chinese or even worse for them, pro-American. See, the Americans are upset. We bought Russian oil. Our purchases of Russian oil are very important for Russia, very important, and we are now expanding our ties. So ये तीनों एक साथ है, मगर Russia remains our friend because of circumstances. They have nowhere else to go, and India is too big a country to leave alone. So they are helping us quietly in many ways. We are not buying as many weapons from them because उनका भी थोड़ा problem है, and we are diversifying correctly. The most important diversification is India doing Atmanirbhar, making in India. We now make our first-class artillery. We are now making our Tejas 2. We are doing many things at home. Our biggest challenge is now to do AI. AI may we are 10 years behind China. AI will give China so much power that it's a threat to us. China's AI is also a threat to the United States. हम शुरू किया, थोड़ा आगे करना था. We should have done this before. So China, Russia, and the United States are all involved. But don't underestimate Pakistan. ये टूटा फूटा देश कि इतना assets है इंडिया में. If India is at war with China and Pakistan, जो हो सकता है, you will see the kind of revolt in Indian cities. ये करने वाले हैं. ये जो थर्ड फ्रंट के बात कहा था ना, ये थर्ड फ्रंट के बाद हमारे सीरियस, ये सब पाकिस्तानी थर्ड फ्रंट है. Cities will burn. Shaheen Bagh will look like a kindergarten tea party ये जब शुरू होगा. Delhi riots will look like a very minor event. ये सब शहर में हमें पता है, हम तैयारी कर रहे हैं, but they will make India. What did happen in Gujarat? Godhra में क्या किया? They were very afraid we were going to invade. That is why they triggered Godhra. उनका अपना asset Godhra किया, and the Indian army had to be diverted to Gujarat from the border. मोदी जी जब मांगा दिग्विजय सिंह से from मध्य प्रदेश for reinforcement, दिग्विजय सिंह मना कर दिया. उसके बाद आर्मी को भेजना पड़ा. ये बहुत बड़ा एक साजिश था. And Pakistan was involved in triggering the Godhra riots to force the Indian army. They were very frightened. And ये जो parliament attack हुआ, ये चाइना को पता था पहले होने वाला था, because they always consult China. Any situation where India will go to war, they have to tell the Chinese ये होने वाला है, because they will need Chinese help. They also told China about 26/11 in advance, because this also was a situation where India might have gone to war. So they told the Chinese हम कुछ करने वाले हैं, big. Because again, India might have gone to war, and without Chinese support, Pakistan will not dare to declare war against us. So ये हमारे बहुत मुश्किल है in our region. The United States is now actively destabilizing us. They are trying to destabilize Sheikh Hasina and Bangladesh. This is completely against India. ये जो कर रहा है तो बकवास है. They want to put in power a fundamentalist political party of Zia Khalida. क्यों? Because she is a sworn enemy of India and she wants to resume strong ties with Pakistan. ये क्यों कर रहे हैं? ये हमारे खिलाफ है. They should be watched with great care. And Modi जी जो कर रहे हैं, किसी के साथ झगड़ा मत करो. Give a little, take a little. It's a very difficult, complex game of diplomacy that हमारे इतनी बढ़िया टीम मिल गया. हमारी economic policy team and security team is the best in the world. हमारी economics team में जो है, I know them all personally. They are world class. ईमानदार, very capable. हमारी security team का आपको पता है, मोदी जी खुद है, अमित शाह है, अजीत डोवल जी है और जयशंकर है. ये सब world class players हैं. तो हम सब देख रहे हैं, समझ रहे हैं, but we have a very delicate, हम बहुत नाजुक है as a society, very नाजुक, we are very vulnerable, so we have to play a game. and मोदी जी हमारे domestic constituents को हर वक्त खुश नहीं कर सकते. People say, why did you do Christmas fair? अरे भाई, किसी के साथ हमें पंगा नहीं लेना है, सबको खुश रखना है. So please be happy. हम कहाँ जा रहे हैं? धीरे धीरे some setbacks, but हम आगे बढ़ रहे हैं.
जी. मैं एक ही चीज कहना चाहूंगी, मोदी जी ने क्रिसमस जरूर मनाया, बट वायरल सॉन्ग कौन सा हो रखा है? पहाड़ी गाने. डू यू नॉट फील कि अचानक से पहाड़ी गाने वायरल हो रहे हैं? कुछ तो बात है. थैंक यू सो मच सर.
कितने चलाक है देखिए.
मैं वही तो कह रही हूँ, he knows how to use the mediums. वायरल गाने कहाँ से आ रहे हैं, कौन इनको वायरल कर रहा है?
मैं
मतलब
सच
पहाड़ का
बोलूं, मैं
गाना, उत्तराखंड का
इसको
गाना बंगाल में, तमिलनाडु में, महाराष्ट्र में अगर अ, गाया जा रहा है और वायरल किया जा रहा है बाय थ्रू
आपने प्लीज
डिफरेंट।
ब्रॉडकास्ट के, मैं कह रहा हूँ आई एम नॉट अ वेरी गुड हिंदू, पर ये मोदी जी ईश्वर की कृपा हमारे पास आए, मैं सचमुच आई रियली फील दैट इन माय हार्ट। नमस्ते।
थैंक यू सो मच फॉर जॉइनिंग। जाने से पहले सभी व्यूअर्स से रिक्वेस्ट है, प्लीज डोंट फॉरगेट टू लाइक, सब्सक्राइब एंड शेयर द ऑल न्यूज मीडिया। अगर आप कंट्रीब्यूट करना चाहते हैं, फीडबैक देना चाहते हैं, मुझसे जुड़ना चाहते हैं, तो सभी लिंक्स डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में। इसी के साथ जय हिंद, जय श्री राम, हर हर महादेव।
जय
थैंक यू
हिंद,
सो
जय
मच।
श्री राम।